The massive space station hummed with nervous energy as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for what many considered the most important ceremony since the war ended. The UES Indomitable floated in the docking bay like a sleeping giant, its dark hull stretching 15 kilometers from nose to tail. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the observation deck, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he watched the human warship that had haunted his people's nightmares. For 3 years. Today, we finally put an end to this madness, Kethvar muttered to his aide, a younger Zephyrian named Telnara. No more will this death machine spread terror across the galaxy. The peace treaty was clear. All human dreadnoughts had to be dismantled within 6 months of the war's end. The Indomitable was the last one, and certainly the most dangerous. This ship alone had destroyed 12 Zephyrian battlecruisers and turned the Battle of Proxima Station from a certain Zephyrian victory into a crushing defeat. Admiral Sarah Chen walked into the ceremony hall with a small group of human officers. Kethvar studied her face, expecting to see sadness or anger. Instead, the human woman looked almost cheerful. Her dark eyes sparkled with something that looked suspiciously like amusement. This worried Kethvar more than he cared to admit. "Admiral Chen," Kethvar said as she approached the signing table, "I trust you understand the gravity of today's proceedings." "Oh, absolutely," Chen replied, her smile never wavering. "We're fully committed to the peace process. The Indomitable will be decommissioned exactly as the treaty requires." Council. Chairman Veltar, a tall being from the neutral Astrani species, cleared his throat. "Let us begin. Admiral Chen, do you formally surrender all military command of the UES Indomitable?" "I do," Chen said, placing her hand on the scanner. The ship's authorization codes transferred to the Council's custody with a soft beep. "Do you acknowledge that this vessel will be stripped of all weapons, armor, and military systems?" "I do." "And do you agree that the remaining hull will be disposed of in a manner approved by this Council?" Chen's smile grew wider. "I absolutely do." Kethvar felt his skin crawl. Why was she so happy about this? He had expected the humans to fight the decommissioning, to argue and delay. Instead, they seemed eager to get it over with. The ceremony continued with speeches from various council members about the importance of peace and disarmament. Chen listened politely, occasionally nodding, but Kethvar noticed she kept checking her wrist communicator. Several times, other human officers whispered things in her ear that made her grin. When the formal proceedings ended, Kethvar approached Chen. "Admiral, I must say I'm surprised by your enthusiasm for this process." "Why would I not be enthusiastic about peace?" Chen asked innocently. "Most military officers would be upset about losing their most powerful ship." Chen shrugged. "The Indomitable served its purpose during the war. Now it's time for something new." That phrase bothered Kethvar for the rest of the day. Something new. What did that mean? 2 days later, Kethvar demanded to inspect the ship before it was officially handed over to human civilian authorities for scrapping. He brought a full team of Zephyrian engineers to verify that the decommissioning was complete. What they found inside the Indomitable shocked them. The ship was completely gutted. Every weapon had been removed, leaving empty chambers that echoed with their footsteps. The armor plating had been stripped away, exposing the basic hull structure. Even the military-grade life support systems were gone. "Where did all the equipment go?" Kethvar asked the human technician leading the tour. "Recycled," the man said cheerfully. "We're using the materials for civilian projects. Nothing goes to waste in human space." They walked through corridors that had once been filled with ammunition and found them completely empty. The bridge was stripped down to bare walls. The engine room contained only the basic reactor needed to keep the lights on and maintain artificial gravity. "This is thorough," Telnara whispered to Kethvar. Too thorough, Kethvar replied quietly. The human technician overheard them. We take our commitments seriously, Ambassador. When we say something will be decommissioned, we mean it. But something felt wrong. The humans were too efficient, too organized. Kethvar had expected them to drag their feet, to leave some systems in place by accident. Instead, they had stripped the ship so completely that it looked like they had been planning this for months. What will happen to the hull? Kethvar asked. It'll be transferred to our Civilian Space Construction Authority, the technician said. They'll probably break it down for raw materials. All that metal and composite material, it's worth a fortune to the right civilian contractors. As they finished the inspection, Kethvar noticed something odd. Despite being completely stripped of military equipment, the ship's basic structure was in perfect condition. The hull was solid, the main corridors were clean and well-maintained, and all the basic systems worked perfectly. It was as if the humans had carefully removed only the military components while preserving everything else. Interesting approach to scrapping, he commented. The technician grinned. Humans are efficient. Why destroy something when you can repurpose it? That evening, Kethvar filed his report with the Zephyrian High Command. The Indomitable had been successfully decommissioned according to all treaty requirements. The ship posed no military threat to anyone, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. 3 weeks later, the stripped hull of the Indomitable was officially transferred to Torres Civilian Construction, a human company, specializing in space habitats and mining stations. The Council voted unanimously to approve the transfer, eager to close this chapter of galactic history. Admiral Chen attended the final transfer ceremony. As she watched the massive hull being towed away by civilian tugs, Kethvar approached her. One last time. Any regrets about losing your ship, Admiral? Chen looked at the departing hull and smiled that same mysterious smile. Ambassador, that ship served humanity well during the war. I have a feeling it's going to serve us even better during peacetime. What do you mean by that? Oh, nothing specific, Chen said, but her eyes twinkled with mischief. Let's just say that humans have always been good at finding new uses for old things. As the Indomitable's hull disappeared into the darkness between stars, Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. The war was over, the ship was decommissioned, and the peace treaty was fulfilled. So why did he feel like the humans had somehow won this exchange? Back on Earth, in a secure government facility, Admiral Chen met with Director Martinez of the Colonial Development Program. On the wall behind them was a detailed blueprint labeled Project New Horizon, Generation Ship Conversion Program. How? Long until the first ship is ready? Chen asked. 6 months, Martinez replied. The Indomitable was perfect for this. Her hull structure is exactly what we need for a long-range colony ship. Chen nodded. The Zephyrians think we're scrapping her for raw materials. Well, Martinez said with a grin, we are repurposing her. They never asked what we were repurposing her into. Outside, construction crews were already preparing for the most ambitious project in human history, converting humanity's most powerful warship into something the galaxy had never seen before. Commander Vextai crouched in the shadows of his stealth ship's bridge, studying the sensor readings with growing disbelief. 6 months had passed since the humans supposedly scrapped the Indomitable, but the intelligence reports coming from Zephyrian spies told a different story. The humans hadn't destroyed their most famous warship at all. They had moved it to a remote construction facility in the outer edges of their solar system. Are you certain these coordinates are correct? Vextai asked his navigator. Yes, Commander. The spy network confirmed it 3 times. The humans are definitely working on something big at Kepler Station. Vextai's ship, the Silent Blade, was one of the most advanced stealth vessels in the Zephyrian fleet. If anyone could get close enough to see what the humans were really doing, it was him. The peace treaty allowed for monitoring of human space activities, but technically, the humans weren't required to announce every civilian construction project. They approached the coordinates. Vextai's sensors began picking up massive energy signatures. Whatever the humans were building, it was huge. When they finally got close enough for visual confirmation, Vextai's jaw dropped. The Indomitable floated in space, surrounded by hundreds of construction ships, cargo haulers, and worker pods. But this wasn't the stripped hull he had expected to see. The massive ship was covered in scaffolding and construction equipment, with new sections being attached to its sides and belly. "What in the name of the void are they doing to that ship?" his weapons officer whispered. Vextai activated the ship's most powerful sensors and began a detailed scan. What he discovered made no sense at all. The humans were installing civilian habitation modules along the ship's outer hull, massive transparent sections that looked like observation decks, rotating sections that could only be artificial gravity, generators for long-term living. "Commander," his science officer called out, "I'm detecting hydroponic systems, atmospheric processors, and what appears to be a shopping complex." "A shopping complex? On a warship?" "It gets stranger, sir. I'm reading schools, recreational facilities, and residential quarters for thousands of people. They're turning the Indomitable into some kind of colony ship." Vextai studied the readings more carefully. The humans had kept the ship's basic structure, but were adding everything needed for long-term space travel with civilians. The former, weapon bays were being converted into parks and community centers. The ammunition storage areas were becoming apartment blocks. But none of this made sense from an engineering standpoint. The Indomitable had been designed as a warship, not a passenger vessel. Its power systems were built for weapons and shields, not for supporting civilian populations. Its hull design was meant to deflect enemy fire, not provide comfortable living spaces. "Sir," the navigator said nervously, "I'm detecting a patrol ship approaching our position." "Human?" "Yes, sir." It's broadcasting a standard greeting on civilian frequencies. Vextai considered his options. The silent blade could remain hidden, but that might look suspicious if the humans detected them later. Better to respond as if this were a routine diplomatic visit. "Open a channel," he ordered. A friendly human voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Rodriguez of the construction ship Builder's Dream. You're in a designated work zone. Are you here for the station tour?" "Station tour?" Vextai asked, confused. "Sure. Kepler Station offers public tours of our latest colony ship project. It's pretty impressive if I do say so myself. Would you like to dock and take a look around?" Vextai couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans were offering to show him their secret project? This had to be some kind of trap. "This is Commander Vextai of the Zephyrian Intelligence Service," he said carefully. "I am here on a routine monitoring mission as allowed by the peace treaty." "Oh, even better," Rodriguez said cheerfully. "We love showing off our work to other species. Follow my ship to Docking Bay 7. An hour later, Vextai found himself walking through the corridors of what had once been the most feared warship in human space. The transformation was incredible. Where once there had been weapon control rooms, now there were classrooms with children's drawings on the walls. Former ammunition storage areas had become comfortable apartments with real windows looking out into space. "This used to be the main torpedo bay," their human guide, Engineer Lisa Park, explained as they entered a large open area filled with trees and grass. "Now it's Central Park. We've got a full ecosystem in here with birds and everything." Vextai walked to one of the massive windows and looked out at space. Below him, he could see construction crews installing what looked like another residential section. "How many people will this ship carry?" "When we're finished?" "About 50,000, Park said proudly. "Families, mostly. Engineers, teachers, doctors, farmers. Everything needed to start a new colony." "But this is impossible," Vextai said. "The Indomitable was a warship. Its systems aren't designed for civilian use." Park grinned. "That's what makes it so perfect. Military ships are built to last, to function in dangerous situations, to keep working even when everything goes wrong. What's better for a long journey to another star?" As they continued the tour, Vextai began to understand the scope of what the humans had accomplished. They had essentially built a small city inside the hull of their former warship. There were shopping areas, entertainment districts, medical facilities, and even a university. The power requirements alone must be enormous, Vextai said. Actually, that was the easy part, Park explained. Military reactors are incredibly powerful. We've got more than enough energy for everything we need. They visited the former bridge, which had been converted into a civilian government center, where elected representatives would make decisions for the colony. The old strategic planning room was now a library. The former armory had become a museum of human space exploration. "What about defense?" Vextai asked. "Surely you're not sending 50,000 civilians into deep space without any protection." Park's expression became slightly evasive. "Oh, we've got some basic defensive systems. Nothing military-grade, of course. Just enough to deal with asteroids and space debris." Something about her tone made Vextai suspicious, but before he could ask more questions, their tour was interrupted by an announcement over the ship's communication system. "All construction crews, please clear sections 7 through 12. We're testing the new retractable garden systems." Through a nearby window, Vextai watched as large sections of the ship's hull began to move. What had appeared to be permanent additions to the ship were actually sliding panels that could be repositioned. The gardens they had just visited could apparently be sealed away and protected during dangerous situations. "Impressive engineering," Vextai commented. "Humans are good at making things that serve multiple purposes," Park said. But again, something in her voice suggested she wasn't telling him everything. The tour ended at the ship's new main plaza, a large open area filled with shops, restaurants, and gathering spaces. Families of construction workers walked around with their children, testing the new facilities. It looked like any civilian space station, except for the massive scale and the underlying sense of incredible engineering. "When will she launch?" Vextai asked. 6 more months, Park said. "The New Horizon will be humanity's first true generation ship. She'll carry our people to a new star system where they'll build a new world." As Vextai returned to his ship, his mind raced with questions. The humans had somehow turned their most powerful warship into a civilian colony vessel. But something about the whole project felt wrong. The engineering was too sophisticated, the conversion too perfect. It was as if they had planned this from the beginning. "Commander," his science officer said as they prepared to leave, "I completed a full sensor analysis during our visit. The ship's basic structure is unchanged. They've added civilian systems, but the original framework is still there." "What does that mean?" "Well, sir, if someone wanted to remove the civilian additions and reinstall military equipment, it would be relatively simple. The New Horizon could be converted back into the Indomitable in a matter of days." Vextai stared at the massive ship growing smaller in their view screen. The humans claimed they were building a peaceful colony vessel, but they had created something that could become a warship again at a moment's notice. Whether they intended it or not, they had found a way to keep their most powerful weapon while appearing to follow the peace treaty. "File a full report with Intelligence Command," he ordered, "and recommend increased monitoring of human colony ships. I have a feeling the New Horizon is just the beginning." Captain Sarah Martinez stood in the central plaza of the New Horizon, watching families gather for the evening community meeting. Children ran between the benches, while their parents discussed everything from school curriculum to waste recycling schedules. It had been 8 months since the former UES Indomitable had left Earth, and the 50,000 colonists aboard had settled into their new life among the stars. "Hard to believe this used to be a weapons storage bay," said Dr. James Wilson, the ship's chief medical officer, as he joined Sarah at the plaza's edge. Sarah smiled, remembering when this same space had held enough missiles to level a small moon. The kids certainly seemed to like it better this way. The transformation of the ship had been even more successful than anyone had hoped. The colonists had formed a genuine community, complete with elected councils, local businesses, and social clubs. Sarah's job as civilian coordinator kept her busy mediating disputes between neighbors and organizing cultural events. "Captain Martinez to the bridge," came a voice over the communication system. "We have a situation." Sarah frowned. The New Horizon didn't have a traditional ship's bridge anymore. The old command center had been converted into the Colonial Administration Office, but everyone still called it the bridge out of habit. She made her way through the ship's corridors, passing the hydroponics farms where colonists grew fresh, vegetables, and the workshops where others manufactured tools and furniture. The former warship had become a thriving city in space, complete with its own economy and culture. In the administration office, she found Communications Officer Liu, bent over his console with a worried expression. "What's the problem, Liu?" "Long-range sensors are picking up multiple ships on an intercept course," Liu said. "Configuration matches known pirate vessels. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Space pirates were a constant threat to colony. Ships, especially ones carrying valuable supplies and equipment. The New Horizon was supposed to look like an easy target to any criminals who spotted her. "How many ships?" 12 confirmed contacts, 3 heavy cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 3 fast attack ships. It's Captain Scarthak's fleet. Sarah knew that name. Scarthak was the most notorious pirate in this sector of space, known for his brutality and his preference for taking slaves rather than just stealing cargo. His fleet had destroyed at least 6 colony ships in the past decade. "Options?" Sarah asked, though she already knew what they had to do. "We could change course," Lou suggested. "Try to outrun them." "A ship this size? They'd catch us in 12 hours. Send a distress call to the nearest patrol fleet? The closest human military ships are 3 days away. Too far to help." Sarah walked to the large window that had once been the Indomitable's main tactical display. Outside, space looked peaceful and empty, but somewhere out there, a fleet of killers was racing toward them with terrible intentions. She activated the ship-wide communication system. "All residents of the New Horizon, this is Captain Martinez. Please remain calm, but we have a situation that requires immediate action. Report to your designated emergency stations within the next hour. Community leaders should report to the administration office for briefing." Within minutes, the office filled with the elected representatives of various ship sections. Teachers, shop owners, engineers, farmers, and parents all looked to Sarah for answers. "Pirates," she said simply. 12 ships, heavily armed, 6 hours out. We need to make a choice." The room erupted in concerned voices. Sarah let them talk for a moment, then called for quiet. "We have 2 options," she continued. "We can try to surrender and hope they just take our supplies and leave us alive. Or we can fight." "Fight?" asked Maria Santos, who ran the ship's main school. "This is a civilian vessel. We don't have weapons." Sarah looked around the room at the faces of people who had trusted her to keep them safe. These weren't soldiers. They were families looking for a new life among the stars. But they were also something else that the pirates didn't understand. "Actually," Sarah said carefully, "we do have weapons. We've always had weapons." She walked to a control panel that had been disguised as a decorative wall sculpture and placed her hand on a hidden scanner. The panel lit up, revealing a complex array of switches and displays. "Computer, activate Emergency Defense Protocol 7. Authorization Martinez Alpha 77. Emergency Defense Protocol acknowledged. Beginning system activation." The computer responded in a calm voice. Around the room, wall panels slid away to reveal military-grade displays and control systems. The ceiling opened to show tactical screens that had been hidden behind decorative tiles. The comfortable civilian office transformed into something that looked suspiciously like a warship's command center. "What is this?" Dr. Wilson asked, staring at the displays. "This," Sarah said, "is what we really are. The New Horizon is a colony ship, yes, but she's also still the Indomitable. We never actually removed the military systems, we just hid them. The room buzzed with confused voices. Sarah raised her hand for quiet. Listen carefully. When we converted this ship, we built the civilian sections around the original military framework. Every park, every school, every shop was designed to retract or convert back to its original military purpose. The hydroponic bays are actually weapon storage areas with gardens built over them. The shopping district is a disguised command center. The residential areas are crew quarters that can be sealed and armored in combat. She pointed to the displays, which now showed the ship's true layout. The innocent colony vessel was transforming before their eyes into something far more dangerous. But we're civilians, protested Tom Chen, who managed the ship's main marketplace. We don't know how to fight. Sarah smiled grimly. Tom, you've been managing our supply distribution for 8 months. That's exactly the same as managing ammunition distribution during combat. Maria, you coordinate education schedules for 5,000 children across 12 school districts. That's more complex than running a tactical communications network. She turned to address the whole room. Everyone on this ship has been living and working in what used to be a military vessel. You've learned systems that were originally designed for war. You just didn't know it. The displays around them showed the ship's true capabilities. Hidden weapon arrays were powering up. Armor plating was sliding into position over the civilian areas. The comfortable colony ship was revealing its true nature as one of humanity's most advanced warships. The choice is yours, Sarah said. We can surrender to the pirates and hope for mercy, or we can show them what happens when someone threatens a human community. Dr. Wilson stood up slowly. My medical bay. It's really a military hospital, isn't it? Complete with surgical facilities designed for combat casualties, yes. Maria Santos looked thoughtful. The school communication system I use to coordinate between classrooms is identical to the system used for coordinating between weapon batteries, Sarah confirmed. One by one, the colonists began to understand. They hadn't just been living on a converted warship. They had been training to crew a warship without even knowing it. Every civilian job had prepared them for its military equivalent. Tom Chen was the first to smile. Well then, I guess we should show these pirates what happens when they mess with our home. The vote was unanimous. The New Horizon would fight. As the colonists dispersed to their stations, Sarah watched the transformation continue around her. Gardens retracted into armored compartments. Shops closed their decorative fronts to reveal weapon control stations. The ship's peaceful civilian corridors became the halls of a warship preparing for battle. Computer, Sarah said, activate all defensive systems and send a message to Captain Scarthak's fleet. Message ready for transmission, the computer replied. This is Captain Sarah Martinez of the New Horizon. You are approaching a civilian colony vessel carrying 50,000 men, women, and children seeking a new life among the stars. Turn away now, and we will forget this encounter ever happened. She paused, watching the tactical display as the pirate fleet continued its approach. If you choose to attack us, you should know one thing. We are not just colonists. We are a community, and communities protect their own. The message transmitted into space, carrying humanity's warning to the approaching pirates. In 6 hours, Captain Scarthak would discover what the rest of the galaxy was slowly learning. Humans never really stopped being dangerous. They just got creative about hiding it. Captain Scarthak stood on the bridge of his flagship Blood Reaper, studying the massive ship floating in space ahead of them. The human colony vessel was exactly what his intelligence reports had described, a converted civilian transport, fat, with supplies and helpless civilians. It would be the richest prize his fleet had taken in years. 15 kilometers long and completely defenseless, his weapons officer reported with satisfaction. Sensors show no military-grade shields, no weapons arrays, and definitely no escort ships. Scarthak's scarred face twisted into a cruel smile. The Korthak pirate had spent 20 years raiding colony ships, and they all followed the same pattern. The civilians would panic, send desperate distress calls, and eventually surrender when they realized no help was coming. Then came the profitable part, selling the valuable cargo and the colonists themselves to slave markets in the outer systems. "Any response to our demands?" he asked. "Just that message from their captain," his communications officer replied, "warning us to stay away from their community." The bridge crew laughed. Scarthak had heard similar brave words from colony ship captains before. They always sounded tough until the shooting started. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Standard pattern. Disable their engines first, then target their communication arrays. I want them helpless but intact." The 12 ships of Scarthak's fleet moved into position around the New Horizon. The massive colony ship hung in space like a wounded whale, seemingly oblivious to the danger surrounding it. Its civilian exterior showed no signs of preparation for battle. Children's playgrounds were visible through transparent sections. Shopping areas glowed with warm light. It looked like a peaceful space station, not a target for pirates. "Weapons locked on their engine section," the weapons officer reported. "Ready to fire. Do it." The Blood Reaper's main guns opened fire, sending streams of plasma toward the colony ship's rear section. The shots struck exactly where the engines should be, but instead of exploding into the vulnerable machinery, the plasma blasts splashed harmlessly against suddenly visible armor. "Plating." "What?" Scarthak snarled. "How did they—" His question was cut off as the New Horizon began to change before his eyes. Sections of the ship's hull slid away to reveal hidden weapon batteries. The peaceful gardens retracted into armored compartments. The shopping areas transformed into tactical command centers. In less than 30 seconds, the helpless colony ship had become something that looked suspiciously like a warship. "Sir," his sensor operator called out in a shaky voice, "I'm reading massive weapons signatures from the target, military grade, plasma cannons, missile batteries, and what appears to be a main gun designed for ship-to-ship combat." "Impossible," Scarthak growled. "It's a civilian transport." The communications console crackled to life with a transmission from the New Horizon. The same human woman who had warned them away now appeared on the screen, but she was no longer standing in a comfortable civilian office. Behind her, Scarthak could see tactical displays and military equipment. "Captain Scarthak," the human said calmly, "this is your final warning. Leave this system immediately, or we will defend ourselves." "You're bluffing," Scarthak replied. "Even if you have some hidden weapons, you're still just civilians. You don't know how to fight." The human woman smiled, and something about that expression made Scarthak's blood run cold. "Captain, you're about to discover something important about human communities. When you threaten our families, our children, our homes, we don't just fight like soldiers. We fight like parents protecting their young." The transmission ended. A moment later, the New Horizon opened fire. The barrage that erupted from the former colony ship was unlike anything Scarthak had ever seen. The humans didn't just shoot at his ships. They coordinated their fire with the precision of a veteran military crew. Multiple weapon batteries focused on single targets, overwhelming shields, and cutting through armor with surgical accuracy. "Return." "Fire!" Scarthak roared. "All ships, attack pattern 7!" His fleet responded, but something was wrong. The humans anticipated every move, countered every tactic. It was as if they could read his mind. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "they're using our own attack patterns against us. Every time we try a standard maneuver, they're already in position to counter it." The truth slowly dawned on Scarthak. These weren't confused civilians, stumbling through their first battle. The humans moved and fought with the coordination that only came from living and working together for months. They knew their ship better than his own crew knew theirs. Every corridor, every system, every weapon had been part of their daily lives. "Focus fire on their command section," he ordered desperately. His ships concentrated their attack on what appeared to be the New Horizon's bridge. The plasma cannons struck home, but instead of destroying the command center, They hit armored plating that slid into place just in time to absorb the damage. Behind the armor, the humans continued to coordinate their defense. "How are they doing?" "This?" his weapons officer asked. Through the battle, Scarthak began to understand the terrifying truth. The humans had built their entire community around the structure of their warship. The people managing the ship's civilian systems were the same people operating its weapons. The teachers coordinating school schedules were now coordinating tactical communications. The engineers maintaining life support were simultaneously managing power distribution to weapons. The humans weren't just defending their ship. They were defending their home, their families, their entire way of life. And they were doing it with a unity and determination that no military crew could match. "Sir, we've lost the Ravager and the Dark Strike," his communications officer reported. "The Void Cutter is requesting permission to withdraw." Scarthak watched in disbelief as his carefully planned attack fell apart. The human ship was not only fighting back effectively, it was winning. Their defensive fire was so precise, so coordinated, that his ships couldn't get close enough to do significant damage. "How many people are on that ship?" he demanded. 50,000, sir. Men, women, and children. 50,000 people all working together to protect their community. Scarthak had attacked what he thought was a helpless transport, but he had actually threatened the home of an entire human population, and they were all fighting back. Through the tactical display, he watched human children being evacuated to safety while their parents operated weapon systems. He saw families working together to repair damage and coordinate defenses. This wasn't just a battle between his pirates and some human soldiers. It was a battle between his fleet and an entire society that had organized itself around the principle of mutual protection. "Sir, the New Horizon is launching fighters," his sensor operator called out. Scarthak looked at the display and felt his last hope die. The humans weren't launching military fighter craft. They were launching civilian maintenance pods, cargo haulers, and personal shuttles, all modified with improvised weapons and operated by colonists who knew every inch of space around their home. The civilian craft swarmed around his ships like angry insects, too small and numerous to target effectively, but dangerous enough to cause serious damage. A cargo hauler, piloted by what looked like a teenage girl, managed to disable one of his destroyer's main guns. A maintenance pod operated by an elderly man somehow infiltrated his fleet's communication network and began broadcasting confusing orders. "This is insane," his tactical officer muttered. "They're using civilian ships as weapons." "They're using everything as weapons," Scarthak realized. The humans had turned their entire community into a military force. Every person, every system, every piece of equipment had been designed to serve both civilian and military purposes. "Sir, we've lost 6 ships and the others are requesting immediate withdrawal," his communications officer reported. "Our attack has completely failed." Scarthak stared at the New Horizon, which was now clearly revealed as one of the most formidable warships he had ever encountered. But it was more than just a warship. It was a floating city, a human community that could defend itself against any threat. "All ships withdraw immediately," he ordered. "Maximum speed." As his remaining ships fled the battle, Scarthak received one final transmission from the human captain. "Captain Scarthak, this is Captain Martinez. We're letting you leave because we're not killers, but spread the word to anyone who might be interested. Human colony ships are not easy targets. We're communities, and communities take care of each other." The transmission ended, leaving Scarthak alone with the terrible knowledge of what he had just encountered. The humans had created something new, a civilization that could fight as effectively as any military force, but with the motivation that only came from protecting home and family. As his fleet limped away from the battle, Scarthak realized that the age of easy prey was over. The humans had changed the rules of the game, and pirates like him would have to find new targets. Human colony ships were no longer helpless victims. They were floating fortresses crewed by families who would do anything to protect each other. The emergency session of the Galactic Council erupted into chaos as Ambassador Kethvar finished his presentation. Representatives from dozens of species shouted angry questions while others demanded immediate action. The holographic display still showed footage of the battle between Captain Scarthak's pirate fleet and the human vessel New Horizon, footage that had sent shockwaves throughout civilized space. "Order! Order!" Chairman Veltar called, his forearms raised for silence. "We will address these concerns one at a time." Ambassador Kethvar stood rigid at the speaker's podium, his scarred face reflecting the anger that had been building for weeks since the battle footage first surfaced. "Honorable Council members, the evidence is clear. The humans have violated the peace treaty in the most flagrant manner possible. They have kept a fully operational Dreadnought in service under the guise of a civilian colony ship." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Treaty of Proxima had been very specific. All human military vessels were to be decommissioned and dismantled. The peace of the galaxy depended on it. "The New Horizon is clearly the former UES Indomitable," Kethvar continued. "Our analysis of the battle footage confirms weapon signatures, tactical capabilities, and structural elements that match the human warship exactly. This is a clear violation of interstellar law." Ambassador Chen sat calmly in the human delegation section, seemingly untroubled by the accusations flying around her. When Chairman Veltar called for the human response, she rose gracefully and walked to the podium. "Honorable Council members," she began, "the New Horizon is a registered civilian colony vessel carrying 50,000 human families to establish a new settlement. Everything about the ship's mission, crew manifest, and purpose has been properly filed with galactic authorities." "But it's armed like a warship," shouted the Rigelian representative. "The New Horizon carries basic defensive systems appropriate for a civilian vessel traveling through dangerous space," Chen replied smoothly. "As recent events clearly demonstrate, pirate attacks on colony ships are a real threat. Surely the Council doesn't expect us to send our families into space completely defenseless." Kethvar slammed his fist on the podium. "Basic defensive systems? That ship destroyed 6 pirate vessels and forced the remainder to flee. No civilian craft has that kind of firepower." Chen turned to face him directly. "Ambassador Kethvar, are you suggesting that human families don't have the right to defend themselves against murderers and slavers?" The question hung in the air, like a challenge. Around the chamber, representatives shifted uncomfortably. The moral ground was tricky here. No one wanted to argue that civilians shouldn't be able to protect themselves from pirates. "The issue is not self-defense," Kethvar said carefully. "The issue is that you have maintained a fully operational military vessel in violation of the peace treaty." "Have we?" Chen asked innocently. "The treaty required us to decommission all military vessels. The Indomitable was properly decommissioned according to all treaty specifications. The New Horizon is a new vessel, built for civilian purposes. It's the same ship, is it? The New Horizon carries families, schools, shops, and farming facilities. Its primary mission is colonization, not warfare. The fact that it shares some structural elements with a former military vessel doesn't change its civilian nature." Chairman Veltar called for the technical analysis from the Council's military advisors. A neutral Astrani officer stepped forward with a data pad. "Council members, our analysis confirms that the vessel designated New Horizon does indeed share the basic hull and power systems of the former UES Indomitable. However, the current configuration includes extensive civilian facilities that are incompatible with pure military operations." "Incompatible how?" asked the Centauran representative. "The ship currently carries 50,000 civilian residents, including 15,000 children. It operates schools, hospitals, recreational facilities, and commercial enterprises. While it does possess defensive capabilities, its primary systems are devoted to sustaining civilian life during long-duration space travel." Kethvar felt his argument slipping away. "But those civilian systems can be retracted. The ship can transform back into a warship in minutes." Ambassador, Chen said quietly. Are you familiar with human merchant ships from our pre-spaceflight era? What does that have to do with anything? In times of crisis, human merchant vessels were often armed and used for military purposes. The distinction between civilian and military vessels has always been somewhat fluid in human culture. We build things that can serve multiple purposes. The Rigelian representative leaned forward. Are you saying all human civilian ships are potential warships? Chen smiled. I'm saying that humans have always believed in the right to defend themselves. Our colony ships, merchant vessels, and even private craft carry appropriate defensive systems. We learned long ago that the galaxy is a dangerous place. Around the chamber, representatives began to understand the implications. If humans routinely armed their civilian vessels, where exactly was the line between civilian and military? How could the Council regulate something that humans viewed as a basic right? Council members, HFY said desperately, if we allow this precedent, every species will claim their warships are actually civilian vessels. The treaty system will collapse. Has any other species requested to convert their warships into colony ships? Chen asked. Well, no. Has any other species demonstrated the engineering capability to successfully integrate civilian and defensive systems on this scale? That's not the point. Actually, Ambassador, that is exactly the point. The New Horizon represents a uniquely human solution to a uniquely human problem. We needed to transport large civilian populations across dangerous space. We chose to build ships that could protect those populations. I fail to see how this threatens galactic peace. The debate continued. For hours, but slowly, the momentum shifted. Other representatives began asking practical questions. If human colony ships could defend themselves against pirates, didn't that actually improve galactic security? Wouldn't it be better to have fewer pirate attacks on civilian targets? The Vegan ambassador raised a particularly uncomfortable point. If Captain Scarthak had succeeded in capturing 50,000 humans, the slave markets would have been flooded with human workers. This would have disrupted our own anti-slavery enforcement efforts. Furthermore, added the Syrian representative, the destruction of Scarthak's fleet has significantly improved security in that entire sector. Civilian trade routes are much safer now. As the session wore on, HFY realized he was fighting a losing battle. The humans had found a way to maintain their military capabilities while technically following the letter of the peace treaty. Worse, they had done it in a way that actually benefited galactic civilization. Final question, Chairman Veltar announced. Ambassador Chen, how many more ships like the New Horizon does humanity intend to build? Chen consulted her datapad. Currently, 7 more colony ships are under construction using similar principles. Each will carry between 40 and 60,000 colonists to establish new human settlements throughout the galaxy. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. 8 human colony ships that could each fight like dreadnoughts. Mobile, human populations that could defend themselves against any threat. An expansion of human presence throughout the galaxy that couldn't be stopped by traditional military means. These ships will be properly registered as civilian vessels, Chen continued. Their manifests will be filed with all appropriate authorities. They will operate under civilian law and governance. They will pose no threat to any peaceful civilization. But they could, HFY said quietly. Yes, Chen agreed. They could. Just like any human family could become dangerous if you threaten their children. Just like any human community could become a military force if you attack their homes. That's not a threat, Ambassador. That's just who we are. The vote was closer than expected, but the Council ultimately ruled that the New Horizon and similar vessels were legitimate civilian ships operating within treaty guidelines. The human colony program could continue. As the session ended and representatives filed out, HFY found himself standing alone at the viewing port, watching human ships moving through the space lanes around the station. Some were clearly civilian. Transports, others were obvious merchant vessels, and a few were the new colony ships that looked suspiciously like warships. Troubled, Ambassador? Chen approached from behind. "You've changed everything," Kethvar said without turning around. "The treaty was supposed to limit human military power. And it has. We no longer maintain a military fleet for conquest or aggression. But you've made your entire civilian population into a potential military force." Chen moved to stand beside him at the window. "Ambassador, my species has never really distinguished between civilian and military the way yours does. When our communities are threatened, everyone fights. When our families are in danger, everyone becomes a soldier. The New Horizon isn't a warship pretending to be a colony ship. It's a community that happens to be very good at protecting itself. And if that community decided to expand, to take territory from other species, then it would cease to be a community and become a conquest force.